Hi everyone, and welcome to the second week of the Tabletopia game making course that I do on Thursdays overview. So last week I already talked about the guidelines of what you should be thinking about. I'd like to just go through that quickly again, and then I can go on to the sort of draft that I've done for my own game, and hopefully you've done for yours, and also how to start implementing them into the Tabletopia workshop. So for the guidelines, I won't go too much into this, but just points to remember. What's your gameplay? A to B, fighting other players, hidden identity. The students had some really good points. I think one is going to be a liar dice game, and a couple of the other students are going to do fighting type games, so that should be quite good. I'm going to do an A to B type game, so they need to navigate through sort of through the board. So the win condition for the fighting players, I imagine that's just to get the player down to 0. The liar dice game, I think the student mentioned that the person with the most dice. So if you've got all the dice, if you lose all your dice, sorry, you basically are out of the game. And for my one, it's going to be for the highest points. Play as a group. Yeah, I think for my game, you can sort of play from 2 to maybe 8. The fighting type games for the other students, that was talked about in regards to having teams. So that should be quite interesting. And the liar type game, I imagine, probably would work well from 3 players up. But again, we'll just have to see what they come up with. 10 elements. I don't think any of the students in my game went over 10 elements, so that's pretty good. And again, we'll be going through these points when we go through my game anyway, so that if you're following along with the YouTube videos, just to make sure the gameplay. And time limits, you won't really know at this time unless you're kind of doing little play tests just by yourself and sort of trying to be the other players, but you should notice when you start doing play testing, try not to make it too long. So this was an example that I did and I tried to convey to the other students last week and also the previous week as well. Try to get a game that's a full loop. So do a very simple type game that's complete and then play it, see how it is, what revisions you need to do, and then add on to that, add elements, add additional features, just so that you're at the end of the 6 weeks, you don't have like, oh, I still need to work out my game. From this method, you would have a finished game. You might not have the game that you initially wanted, but you'll have different versions. So you might at the end of 6 weeks have version say 7, but you might want it in a completed phase maybe 10. But at least that will be a way for us all to play a game, and have an experience of actually finishing a game, which would be quite nice. So the example here was 2 players roll a dice. After 3 rounds, one with the highest number wins. That's not really an exciting game, so if you were to make a game like that, you would sort of do it and see what you can improve, and then play test and add elements. The second design phase would then maybe have a counter, so you would have 10 points each. When the player rolls a 1, 4, or 6, that person then takes away 1 point. So it's a kind of hindrance. After 3 rounds, the points are counted and added onto their counter. Again, this now adds another element onto the previous gameplay, makes it a little bit more interesting, a little bit more game of chance, but maybe that's not really good. So then you would do another revision, and the third design would be adding cards to the game. If a player lands on a 2, 3, or 5, they draw a card, which can take away 1 to 3 points from the other player at any time. Rounds then increase to 5. After a number of rounds, the points and the dice are added to see who's higher. So as you can see, the gameplay is pretty much the same, and each time with the revision of the game design, it's improved after playtesting. Obviously, what I've done here is an example, but hopefully you should get a good idea of having a closed loop and then revising it and improving it each time. The same thing should be for your card designs. So when you design any element for your game, if it be the cards, the boards, or you have a character sheet, try to just do a very rough skeleton version of design. I actually drew my board game design on a piece of paper, but I've made it digital for you just to make it a little bit more presentable. But it's just for you. I'll be going back to my own design or my notes, if you just want to do notes, just so that I can remind myself what I initially was thinking at the time, and to be able to sort of scratch things out, add bits on, and just to sort of revise it each week as you go along. So the first step would just be create a skeleton of your design element. You know, stick figures, if it's a card with +1 health, just add that, and that's it. You just need something to be able to play with. After that, when you've play tested the game a bit and you think, okay, that's pretty much not going to change now. I want these characters. I want an elf. I want the dice designed a certain way, and I want that. That's not going to really change. Then improve that design element. And then step 3 would be pretty much once you know you're not going to change that element at all, then you can improve it and then refine it until you're happy. So at each stage, again, have almost like the previous step, a closed loop where you have something physically in front of you that you're able to do, and then you can improve it each time. Don't go straight on with having like a really, spend loads of time doing your character sheet and making everything really good, and then realizing when you do the game testing and play testing with your friends, or if something changes in your game, you have to go back. That's just not the way to do it. So you have to start really simple and improve each step. Right, so this is my game. As you can see, it's a very simple, rough idea, but it should give you a good idea of my notes or what I'm going to do. I'm going to be talking through them. So my game is called Cave Rush. The idea is that a group of players go into a cave and everything is all fine, and they go right to the end. So you're not actually starting from the start, which I thought I'd like to do a little twist. So at the end, there's like a treasure, and the players basically then roll and see who goes first, and that first player then gets the treasure, and then they have to make their way out of the cave. And during so they get to pick cards, there's a wall that moves, and there's a pointer system. You can see the cards here, which I'll explain in a minute. So you can be the first player to get out of the cave and have a good number of points, but you won't be able to get any more points. If you have the treasure and you're able to get out the cave, you get an additional 5 points or whatever I think of at the time. So I don't know. I was kind of thinking maybe there'd be quite a good strategy where you kind of might want to like play cards against other players, but then maybe play cards against yourself to gain more points if you can see that you don't have enough, and if you exit the cave, you won't have enough points. So I'll just go through them. As you can see, the board game is very simple. I imagine that I'd probably have to increase this size due to the number of players. As you can see here, these are the players. This is the treasure that when you maybe roll for initiative, player with the highest number gets to go first, and that person gets the treasure at the first, but then you can drop the treasure with certain cards. After everyone has played a game, like round, you move the wall. So I was thinking that you can't stay in the cave forever. There's something, a mechanism where like Indiana Jones, I just thought it'd be funny. I don't ever watch Indiana Jones for ages, but the wall continuously moves forward one space, so you can't stay in there and sort of cheat the system. Again, I don't know if you will be able to cheat the system when they do the play testing, so I might have to take that element out. You have a dice, depending on how many spaces you go. Obviously, dice goes up to 6, so again, that might be another reason to increase the number of squares. Then you have a point system, you have a counter system, which I believe I taught and showed last time, which they have in Tabletopia. And that's just an easy way just to keep a note of your points and everyone else's. and then you have the cards. For my game, I only have 3 cards currently. You have the drop card that can only be used on the player that has the treasure, so it doesn't affect anyone else. And you have greed cards and rush cards. Rush cards, you're rushing through the cave, so you move 1 space forwards, but you get to lose a coin. Greed cards, you basically move back 1 space because you're looking, but you actually gain a coin. And these cards are placed down, and when you go over them, maybe they get triggered. So yeah, that's the pretty much basics of the game. You start here and you exit here. I did talk about elements, and that was a bit of confusion with the students this week, but hopefully I can clarify that a bit more. So the board game itself would be 1 element because that's one thing it does. Second element would be the cards. Even though I have 3 cards, they all do the same thing. You take a card and then you play it. So they all do one particular thing. If I had cards that did something else that maybe affected the character, or I don't know, maybe just gave points. So they would be slightly different, but you could argue that would be a 3rd element or be kept in the same. But for now, let's just say all the cards are just 1 element as well. So at the moment, I've got 2 elements. Then you've got the 3rd element, which would be the treasure, because a player actually picks that up. So it doesn't do anything else apart from that. The players themselves, so I want to have little characters or meeples. Even though I have 4 characters here, they all do the same thing. They're all just player icons. So they would all do one thing. So that's up to 4 elements now. The wall that moves forward, that doesn't do anything else. So that would be a 5th element. 5th element. The point system. Now, again, I would have these point systems for every player, but it does one thing by itself. So again, that would be 6. And the last one would be 7, which would be the dice, because I'm rolling that dice. As I mentioned to the students, for fighting games, because they might have a defend and attack, you might consider that to be 2 elements. Try to use the 10 element rule as a rough estimate. Don't use it as like, oh, I need to just have 10 or less. The only reason I've put that there is to sort of make sure that students and yourself don't go crazy and add like 50 different elements, 50 different types to your game, and you'll never ever be able to finish it within the 6 weeks. Like I said, within this time, I could have probably reduced this down and improved it, but I think I can pretty much get this simple idea done by week 4, at least playing, and then improve it and increase the element size or decrease it. So yeah, just try to remember 10 or less. But you know, if your game really needs to have like 12, then sure, add 12. But just try to be reasonable. So here we are back on Tabletopia, and hopefully you've played some games if you find it interesting. We showed you Go Nuts for Donuts. There's Railroad Inc., which is highly recommended. But what I want to show you today is the workshop. So at the moment we're in Playground. We'll click on Workshop. So click on that. And if you haven't created a game before, you should just have Create New Game. Because we're on the free version, we can only create 1 game per account. But if you go premium, you'll be able to create some more. If you've already created a game, you'll have like a little box system here, which I'll show you right at the end. So click on Create New Game. So here we are with the workshop element here. We can upload images here. We just have to drag and drop. We've got the name, so let's type that in. There you go. We can type an alternate name, but I don't really have that, so that doesn't really matter. We can do the game type. I think you can only choose 2 at the moment. So let's do party, not classical. Let's do adventure. Remember the URL. If you already have a name that's, I don't know, popular, and the URL is going to be the same, you won't be able to do it. So you might have to add 1, 2, or your initials, just so that the URL is unique. BGG, which is Board Game Geek, you can have a link on there. This is mainly for people who have, you know, they're trying to officially release a game. This is sort of the code for, like you have the back of products. Your age range. So think about what sort of age range you want your game to be players for. Is it rude? You might want to increase that to 18 or over. If it's not, then 16 for me is fine. You could probably have that less, to be honest. You could probably have 10. Playing time, keep that the same, I guess, unless you know that it's going to be longer or shorter. You can have a short description. So you can have, this is Cave Rush. Again, you'll be able to change any of these elements later. My name. Personal use only. That will be only for yourself and friends. Available to all users, you have to email Tabletopia because they won't release any of the games. And here you have the banner. They all have the correct size, so you can all do this in Photopea, which I'll be showing again next week. And any additional links, say for YouTube or whatever you want. And most importantly, I guess, do rules, just PDF. So once all that is done, click Save. If it doesn't let you save, then you've obviously done something wrong, or the URL has been taken. So you don't want that. So once you finish that, you'll come to this page, which if you've added the box and the banner, they will obviously appear there. You can edit these at any time, like click in Edit, you go Save. You might want to keep your notes or your drawing handy, just so that when we start implementing them into the sandbox, you'll know what you need to import or whatever. Create setup we won't need to do yet, just because we don't actually have any objects to do that. So let's do that next. So click on to Objects. So here we are in Objects. Now, Tabletopia isn't perfect, and sometimes it goes a little bit funny. And this might be a good example to, instead of me trying to fix it, me trying to explain it, because the same thing might happen to you. Now, I had a previous folder that I had made, which I did on Thursday. And when you make a folder, you should see that same folder here. Now, because for this tutorial, I had to delete everything. Normally, when you create a new game, it appears again. But for whatever reason, it hasn't done that here. So in order to do that, I can create a new group, and I can do Cave Rush. See, the group is already there. Let's do Group Rush 1, 2. Okay. So we click on My Games. This is Cave Rush. Click on Objects. Cave Rush 2. Okay. So that's what should appear there with your name, not Cave Rush 2. But whatever you'll say would normally appear there here anyway. This is just a good way to sort of make sure that everything is all fine and dandy and doesn't go crazy, because you'll have loads and loads of folders. So once you've got this, again, this shouldn't really happen. You should be fine. But if it doesn't, just make a new group like I've done and just name it something. Hopefully your game. Click onto, once object is selected, click Featured. And let's start to select the objects that I need. So we need so we have different sizes of dice here. We have 20 millimeters or 14. Sure, let's go with 20. Let's go with green, why not? Copy to My, and click on Cave Rush. Again, you just have your folder here. Copy to My, there you go. And then what else we need? We want the treasure, don't we? So let's do that. Let's have the circle for the treasure. Again, I could probably change this afterwards, and I'll show you how to make custom stuff. But mostly that would be for next week. But for now, let's do some placeholders. So this will be the treasure. Again, copy to My. Good, Cave Rush, like that. Again, make sure that go to My and make sure that stuff is going in here. So if I click on My, you'll see the dice and the treasure that I've got here. and I can increase the number of dice I want to play by clicking the plus and minus. So we need to have some more stuff. We need a wall next, or we might need some meeples. Let's do some people for now. So let's do 1, 2, 3, 4. Copy that to there. Copy to my. Where's the wall? Let's have a column for a wall. Have a brown wall here. Put that there. Now I won't be able to show you the actual board game design because doing it from Thursday, you can't really implement anything or import anything, should I say, sorry. But again, I'll be doing that next week. We're just sort of doing placeholders, and I want to show you how to import stuff into the sandbox. We want counters, so we want 4 counters because we just have 4 players so far. Copy to my. And if you can't remember what you've imported, just go back to my and see what you've got here. So we've got the dice, we've got the wall, we've got the treasure, we've got the players, and we've got the counters. We would need cards, but we don't have any cards at the moment. But I should show you something about cards. So when you do cards, you normally want to create them within your folder here that you've already done, another folder, just because when you normally do card games, you want to have a random element, unless you don't. But I want to explain that you can only do that if you add an additional folder. So I'm going to do here, and I'm going to go Cave Rush Cards. Save. There you go. Now there's nothing in there because we haven't done anything. But I'm going to import some just classic cards here. Actually, these will look quite nice. Let's do that. And I'm going to do these 4 here. Oh. Actually, if you double click, you can, or just single click, you can see these look quite nice. So let's do 10, a 2, a 3, and a 4. Actually, let's see what else have you got there. Oh, actually, yeah, nice. Oh, these look nice. Let's do that. And that one. Yeah, that's cool. Right. And then I want to copy to my Cave Rush. Click on that. And then you'll see the additional folder that we've done. And we want to click that there. So that's imported. And something else that I found last time, which was quite cool, which was the actual table. So I found that you can add a table if you want, which is what you'll be playing on. Or there was something else which was pretty cool. Surfaces, this was it. And I found that there was a really, really nice one that was stone. And I was considering I'm going to be playing in a cave. I thought, yeah, why not? So I'll select that and copy to my. Don't need to click that. So, yeah, just click. If I click again, it will go into here. So don't worry too much about that. I can just copy to my, or I can just go back. But Cave Rush, not the cards, just there. There you go. Right. So go back to my. And that should be everything that I would show you here. If I click on cards now, you can see how many cards I've got, right? So imagine these are custom cards. Now I only have 1 10, 1 2, 1 3, and so on. If I want 2 10s, 2 queens, 2 ace, or maybe 3 aces, and the rest 1, that would be the amount of cards that I can play. Then you'll see this card, which I didn't add, but this is why you need to have another folder. This will randomize, if you put it onto the sandbox, which we'll show in a second, any of these cards once you draw them when you're actually playing the game. So you need to turn this on to randomize. Okay? If you don't, you won't be able to import it. So you need to turn this on. And I think that's enough for now. So let's start importing these into the sandbox. So you can go to home, or you can go to my game. It's up to you. Go to Cave Rush. And let's go to create setup. So once you click on setup, you'll come up to here. Now, what is a setup? A setup is basically a different way you're setting up for the game. So it might be for the number of players, it might be for expansions, it might be for a different language. But for the free account, you only get 2 setups. So we only need to have this one. So I've done 2 to 4. Once you've done that, go to Edit Setup, and then you'll load up the sandbox. Depending on how much you've imported and added for JPEGs and everything, you'll have more space. Now, normally I think everything shows up here automatically, but because remember, for some odd reason, Tabletopia decided to go a bit funny, I had to create a folder. But that's fine, the folder's here, so I can click on that, and everything's here. Actually, no, everything's not there. Cave Rush 2. Here we are. Yeah, there we are. Okay, that's fine. So, you know, this is sort of my navigation thing. So I can click on my Cave Rush. There you go. And then how do you start implementing everything? Well, Stone Service, you just basically click and drag. So click, drag. Oh, that looks quite cool. See? You can move this around. Zoom in. Let's add my players. So let's have 4. There you go. Imagine the board here, I imagine, which I'll probably put. So we'll just have that here. So we have the treasure, and we have the wall. Now, the wall's a bit small here, and the treasure is a bit big. So I might want to decrease this. So if you right-click, you can do scale. So I might want to make this 20% smaller. Maybe that's a bit, maybe 50% smaller, actually. There you go. So it's quite small now. And the wall's quite small, so I want to probably make that bigger. So let's do 50% bigger. There you go. Cool. I'm quite happy with that. Let's have the dice. That's totally fine. I can roll this dice to be a particular number if I want. I can set it to 4 if you want. Again, this is all what you're going to be doing for the setup. I can lock elements if I want, and then players won't be able to do anything or unlock it. Or I can duplicate it, delete it, and so on. Again, I recommend that you sort of experiment. Let's add in the counters. So 1 there, 1 there, 1 over here, 1 over here. And that's everything on this side here. And then the cards, you can start dragging them here. Now, as I was saying, you can drag the cards here. They have to load before you stack them. So I can't drag, say, a 3 and drag it and make it stack onto a 10. You have to drag it off first and then highlight it over till it goes orange, and then you can stack them. Now, the thing is with this is I've dragged it from this point here. Once I play the game, they're always going to be a 2, an ace, or a 10. I want this to be randomized. So what you obviously could do is you could obviously do it this way. Shuffle them, or flip them, sorry, and then when they play, they could shuffle them. Well, I can do it that way, sure. Yeah, that's one way to do it. But, you know, for the sake of it always being unique each time and actually people just playing straight away, you can do the randomizer. So let's delete these. So remove. I'll do the randomize. Now I could drag them each time, which would be a bit of a pain, or I could do duplicate. So I can duplicate this, say, whatever times. So let's do 12. Now, once you go over the amount of cards that you've set here, like I've done 1, 1, 1, 1, 3, 2, and 2, it will not let me duplicate any more cards. And they should come up with an error message. There you go, see? So I can't duplicate any more random cards because that's not what's here. So once you've done that, you can put this, make sure you highlight it so it all stacks up. As you can see, it says front here, but I don't want that. I want it to be the back. Now, if I were to try to drag this across and move it somewhere else, if I do that, it's just going to drag the first one. So what I need to do is hold down Shift, and then I can do it. Drag everything. Again, if you're not too sure what your options are because of what device you're using it on, just go to Help Summary, and it should help you here. So as you can see, I've got my players, got my dice, got my treasure, I've got my cards, or placeholder for cards, got my wall, got my coins. I don't have my board, but I can't show you that. But for now, let's say this is the setup. Go to File, or the equivalent of File, I guess, and go to Save and Publish. And then you'll see a little message. Then click Exit. Now, your game will take a while to publish. So as you can see here, it says Publishing. And that can depend on the amount of people who are creating their own game. If the platform has got a lot of players using it, that will obviously increase in time. If there's not, then you'll be the first in queue and it won't take very long. But on average, it really doesn't take too long. I think maybe a minute tops. So if you do something else, you'll be done. So I don't think it will refresh here, so I might just have to refresh the page. And I'll come back when the game is refreshed. So as you can see here, the game's been published. It didn't take very long. Tells you how many megabytes it is. So if I click on the setups, don't click on create new setup if you want to edit this one. Click on here, which one you've just done. And I can go to edit setup to edit whatever I've done. Or I can play test it for myself. So let's do that. So go to test. It will load up the game. And there you go. So I zoom in. And this is the actual game now. This is all randomized, so I don't know. So I can drag this off. Oh, first you need to choose a seat. So you can't really interact with anything until you've done that. So I'm going to choose blue. And now I can move stuff around if I want. So I can add stuff to my counter, have my character, move the wall. I can roll the dice. Again, it will be exactly the same. Imagine it's a virtual, well, it is a virtual tabletop in front of you. So you could, go crazy if you want to. You can flip that over if you want or whatever. But, obviously be respectful and try not to cheat. The cards. Now, I can drag cards to my hand so I can move around like I showed last week. And this is all randomized. So I don't know what cards I will pick here. There you go. See, this is all randomized. I could have shuffled them at the start if I wanted to. There's no real harm. Just right click and do shuffle. But like I said, if people want to play straight away, they just choose a seat and then I can do that. So that's pretty much it for this week. Let's go back to lobby once you've done. Or you can, like I said, you can click edit to go into that's edit the actual card game. Go to setups and then edit setup. And then you can go back and then you can actually edit the setup. So like I was just saying, that's pretty much it for this week. Very simple. Just import the elements that you want for your card game. Don't worry too much about the correct designs because we'll be doing that next week. But have something where you can actually play it. You might not be able to do the board itself because you probably want to have a custom idea, but try to have a little bit this week and then you can do some more next week. And next week, I will show you how to create custom cards, which you can do by clicking on objects, go to your folder, and then you can create object. And these are custom cards that you can do. So if you want a custom dice, you can click on dice, and basically you would upload this template. You could download the template and then you would upload it, name it to what you would need to name it as well. You can do a card, custom card, again, front and back. That's probably the most important one. Obviously, we'll be doing a game board, which is what I need to be doing. Or you can click on game board. This is actually a game from Ticket to Ride, which is quite nice. Another game that I highly recommend. Configure magnet map. So this is something that we will probably play with maybe in week 4 or so, but basically allows you to have a space where other cards or elements like dice or counters will interact with it. So if you remember the donut game, actually I'll just show you quickly. If we go quickly to the donut game and play hot seat, this is a magnet where you would just have cards snap to an area. So that makes it a little bit neater. Not necessary, but depending on your actual game, you might not, you might need it. So if I were to drag a card here, it would, normally I drag in, it would just drop wherever I want. But for the minute I start to go over this one, there you go. See, it drags to discard. See, I was slightly over, and it will just go, it will snap it. So that's an actual card. So same size as that and with a different number, and that's a magnet. But you can't interact with anything else because that doesn't interact with a dice or the counter, sorry, or if I had a dice or whatever. And I don't think, oh, it does, it interacts with any card. So even though this shouldn't interact with this, because it's still a card, it will still interact with it. So that's it for this week. Just remember, if you are interested in taking part of the course, make sure that you go to our Facebook page where you can have all our details, and I'll put that in the description. And also we'll have an email address which you can contact, which is all on our Facebook page and on our website. Hopefully that's all good, and I look forward to seeing what the students come up with next week, and hopefully see you there. Bye.